Hello, viewers. Welcome to Disease Reversal and Mitigation Studio. We are again grateful to God for granting us another wonderful and beautiful day, and also the opportunity to be able to discuss very important matters regarding our health. Today, we are looking up on a very sensitive topic on viruses. And as we get started, we want to understand what is the meaning of the term virus. The Latin version for the word virus is poison and venom, which is a slimy, acrid secretion resembling snake venom or pus. Now, this is where it gets interesting because snake venom and pus have been used to mean a virus. Are you aware that the medical symbol for medicine that has been adopted by all sick care facilities uses the picture of a snake entwined on a rod with a protuberant forked tongue in the very mode of emitting poison? And are you also aware that pus, which also means a virus, is the foundational material during the 19th century that was used for inoculation? In fact, the father of vaccination, Edward Jenner, obtained pus from infected patients and animals and injected them into healthy subjects as a method of vaccination. The principle of vaccination today is also based on the same ideology of dead tissue. Part of the ingredients of vaccines today are dead cells from fetuses and monkey kidneys and also chicken embryos. So there's a resemblance between early and modern vaccination. There's also another ancient Greek term that means virus, which is eos, and it means poison. So there's a lot of data corroborating that the terms poison, venom, virus, pus mean the same thing, which is a poison. Now, let's look at the origins. And viruses have mysterious origins in that the position of science today is that the exact origin of viruses is yet to be known. Because viruses, after disintegrating, they do not leave evidence, they do not fossilize. So we are talking of a particle which, after it has disintegrated, it does not leave any trace of evidence as to its past existence. So, are they still there, these viruses? And why do you have a lot of panic to things that fossilize and disintegrate that fast? Can they put up a war against our immune system, as we have been made to believe that an entity that is quickly disintegrating is able to fight our immune system? Now, there are three theories that have been suggested that may explain the origins of viruses, and these three theories are: the first one is the reduction mechanism theory, where viruses are said to have contained genes in the past, but they have since lost those genes. And when they lost the genes, they lost functionality. If something loses its genes, does it still become viable? Does it still have the energy to cause disease? So this is where it gets murky and controversial. When we hear that there's an entity that is dead, does not have functionality, but yet we are told it's able to cause disease. The other theory is called the escape theory. And this is interesting because we are told that viruses could have escaped from the very cellular DNA and RNA fragments of a living organism. So it's difficult to differentiate between DNA fragments from viruses and those from healthy cells of a living organism. And unfortunately, the method of testing of viruses and viral loads today, which uses the machine we call PCR machine, collects samples of DNA and RNA fragments from the blood of a subject, and they are sequenced and multiplied many times. And then you're told that there's a positive result, you have a high viral load. Yet, they are the same DNA fragments you find from your aging cells or cells that are dying. And the body is constantly renewing itself. So at every juncture, whenever you take a blood sample from a subject, you are likely to find those dead cells. So this is what is quantified, amplified many times, and it becomes your viral load. Now, the other theory is what we call the virus first theory, where viruses are said to have preceded all life forms. So they were the first forms of life. But these are just theories based on evolution. I believe in creationism, and therefore I do not subscribe to these theories. Now, the other question we have to ask ourselves is, what is your position as far as viruses being dead or alive is concerned? So are viruses dead or are they alive? Are they non-living or are they living entities? Now let's consult mainstream science, and it has the following to say, that viruses are non-living, therefore they are dead. So if they are dead, do they have the molecule of life we call DNA or RNA? No, they don't. But science will claim that viruses are dead or they are non-living and continue to say they contain the molecule of life. That would be a contradiction, and we are unlikely to believe that because our minds are sound. So the interesting characteristics about viruses is that they are not cells, therefore they do not have cellular organelles. They cannot metabolize, they cannot reproduce, they cannot respire, they cannot feed. Hence, they are nothing. They don't have the energy even to put up a fight against your own immune system. So they are that weak. Imagine they can only reproduce, if they reproduce, by depending on your cellular machinery. And the question is, do they even reproduce? We have known naturally that it is only living things and living organisms that can reproduce. So to hear that a dead entity is reproducing, now we could be teaching something that is out of the ordinary, okay? A doctrine that the devil would be happy to hear. Dead entities cannot reproduce. And something else that is very important, I do not expect the body to entertain or to be compatible with a dead entity. So the issue of the virus integrating itself with the body's DNA, causing an infection by so doing, now does not hold here, because the body has a very sensitive immune system as long as you're healthy, and a very effective communication system comprising of the nervous system and the endocrine system that maps out self from non-self. Therefore, there is no way our body's living immune system will accommodate a dead entity in the name of a virus. So let truth be told. The other question we are putting to the scientific establishment is, why is it difficult for you to isolate a virus? And the answer we are getting from the mainstream science as to why they have notorious difficulty in isolating a virus is they say the viruses are, please note that this information is coming from mainstream science. The viruses are notoriously difficult to isolate because they are obligate intracellular parasites. So that phrase is questionable because viruses are dead, therefore we do not expect them to be parasites. But accepting the information as stated, then it is said they are intracellular. They never live outside the cell. So they will never reproduce outside the living host. So by so saying, they say it is difficult to capture a virus. It's also difficult to create a living environment, an ideal environment that is similar to the environment in the living host. So they have never been able to create an in vitro environment that is similar to the in vivo environment for the virus. So it is extremely difficult to isolate the viruses on that basis. Now the question comes, if they have been unable to create an environment where they can isolate the virus, then where do they get the pictures of the viruses they present? Now, do your homework and you'll find that those pictures are not of real viruses, but they have been designed in the computer to give an impression of the nature of the virus they expect. So they are not actual viruses, because actual viruses are difficult to isolate. And this is the embarrassing admission of conventional wisdom itself. And now, if they have been having these notorious difficulties in isolating viruses, where do they get the arrogance and the confidence to state that this virus is called or to attach names to certain viruses? So there's a lot of jumbled information as far as description of viruses is concerned, because how do you name something that you've never isolated? Now, the other problem that conventional wisdom finds itself in, and that is why they find it so difficult to isolate viruses, is because they say that viruses have absolute dependence on host cells. So because of this absolute dependence, then it is difficult to isolate them. So they say the viruses do not have an independent metabolism, and once you remove them out of the living environment in the host, they die. So it has been extremely difficult to create an ideal living environment for viruses, even by using what we call embryonated chicken cells and other laboratory animals. They have never been able to duplicate the same environment as when the viruses are inside the host. The other problem they say they have found is because viruses have preference for certain cells, when they have provided their culture media with certain cells, the viruses have rejected those cell lines. Now that is also interesting, because how can a dead entity have preference? If something is dead, how did it know? How did it reject what is provided for its growth? Now, if this is not spiritualism, where we are giving life to something that is dead, and I don't think we are ready for this, because we believe in God who is consistent. So the way God wants us to understand Him is the way we need to understand. He has designed, we understand the body. And the body is spiritual, because it was created by God. We are supposed to have in our bodies lessons that are consistent with how God created and designed the universe. So we do not expect a dead entity to be intelligent to the extent it's able to prefer certain cells to others for its growth. This is unusual, and this is a different gospel we are not ready for. Okay. Now, there's another position given by conventional wisdom as to why they are unable to isolate viruses. And the reason given is that they are fragile and friable in nature, and because of that, they are delicate to handle, even to transport, as they are taken to the laboratory for culturing. So all viruses are said to be highly sensitive to temperature changes, to pH levels, and to desiccation or drying up. So once you take out a sample from a patient, whether you're testing for COVID, HIV, or other viruses, by the time you remove that sample from the patient, it has already changed. And we stated, or we found from a statement by scientific wisdom themselves, that they are so delicate to the extent they vanish. They just vanish and they leave no trace of evidence as to their past existence. So this is what is happening. If you take a sample and you want to use it to culture it or to form a basis of a test that is going to state whether you're positive or negative for that virus, you are not dealing with the original sample. It has changed because they are that delicate. They are said to be composed of RNA. The most difficult molecule to maintain its stability is RNA, including the RNA of our own body cells. It is highly friable and delicate, and it is designed that way by God so that it can enable us to adapt to changing environments and foods and many antigens that interact with our body, so that the RNAs, as they change, they can help us to develop immunity against the changing environment. So it is difficult to stabilize RNA, and because viruses are said to have RNA, if we can accept that, let me tell you, once you take the sample from the patient, it is different from what is in the body of the subject. And this is scientific, this is the admission of conventional wisdom themselves. Once they take the samples, it's difficult to maintain them. So where did you get the confidence to return positive results and say that you're infected of this virus and you need to start medication, yet the sample you took has already changed? Now, these are the challenges we need to meet and object to. Otherwise, we are going to take medications that we are not suited for, medications that will end up fighting nothing in the body. So they will be fighting our own cells. Now, the other postulation by mainstream science as to why it is extremely difficult to isolate a virus is the sample quality. So they find challenges with the samples because all the samples collected, they are collected in later stages. And if they are collected in later stages, they are saying that there is always low viral load if samples are collected after the infection has grown old. So this would mean patients who need testing need to come immediately after they have been infected. But how many will know that they have been infected and it is so convenient for them to go for a test immediately after the infection? So that is not possible. But when you state that the viral load decreases with the age of the infection, then why would you claim that a subject has a disease when you know that the virus load in that patient continues to decrease as the infection ages? Now that would be contradictory, and for science to be credible, it has to be consistent. Sometimes it takes a lot of faith to believe in certain claims of science, more than the faith taken to believe in God whom we have never seen. You know, falsehoods evolve in the same way viruses evolve. And anything that evolves, that is based on the theory of evolution, is a lie. You have to keep changing goalposts. Truth is consistent, and that is why God and nature and the Bible have never changed. So we use them to base or to measure whether the claims of science so-called are true or not. So this is interesting, that you are saying you cannot get a sample from an infection that is old because the viral load has decreased. Yet you still continue to insist that a patient or a subject that was infected with a virus 5 years, 10 years ago may die of that virus. How is that? Yet you're not able to retrieve any viral load from the sample. So that one is misleading. Now, the other postulation of science, it's about overgrowth by contaminants. So the reason being given as to why they are not able to isolate a virus is because it is growing slowly, and because it grows slowly, it is overgrown by other cells such as bacteria and other contaminants. Now, if you say that, why then would you still claim that when somebody is infected with a virus, there is rapid replication of the virus up to the northwards of billions of particles in a day? Now, is this the same virus? You are saying that in the lab, it grows so slowly to the extent it is overgrown by other contaminants and other bacterial cells. So again, we have an inconsistency, and this means that it will take a lot of faith to believe this position. Now, the other thing is, if the viruses are slow growing and they are overtaken in growth by other bacterial cells or by other contaminants, then it also means that when they are in the body, they are also slow growing. So they cannot overcome our immune system, because our immune system grows very fast and replicates very fast in proportion to the burden of the infection. And because these viruses depend on the host cells for replication, they do not have their own machinery. By the way, they cannot reproduce, they cannot feed, they cannot generate energy. So what can they do? Nothing. So do you still believe they can overcome your immune system if they depend on you for everything? And that's the reason they are slow. So if they are slow, why do you want to panic or fear something that is slow? You know, there's a lot of fear that has been created around viruses, and it's not justified. It's not based on evidence. I think we need to wake up, do the homework, and find for ourselves that the things that are causing fear, they are nothing. They are dead entities. And this is the position of mainstream science. Viruses are dead entities. They don't reproduce, they don't generate energy, they do not feed, they do not respire. So what do? Nothing. Can they kill you? No. Can they cause a disease? No. The reason is they depend on you for survival, if they do. But I'm still questioning how a living body created by God has a healthy immune system will accommodate in itself a dead entity, something that is foreign to it. So this means if we go back to the second theory, the escape theory, where viruses are said to have escaped from the same cellular components that you have in your body, that one may make sense, but you know it was a theory, it's not a fact. And that would mean that it is difficult to tell between a virus and your own body cell if they escaped from your own DNA or RNA. So this would mean if you are to kill a virus, you're killing your own immune system, your own cell. That is, if we have to believe that viruses escaped from your own DNA and RNA. So that is their position. They are saying that viruses are slow, therefore we do not expect them to overcome your immune system if they are slow, and we need not to fear them. Now, the last position of mainstream science as to why it is difficult for them to isolate viruses is that they say that the process is so difficult, it has technical complexities, it is compared to looking for a needle in a haystack. And that is how difficult it is to isolate the virus. So for the reason they are growing very slowly, and they also have preference for certain cells, and they also say that they hide inside the cells. Now, did you ever expect that a dead entity that does not have intelligence can hide within your body? So we are giving a life characteristic to a dead entity, and this is not compatible with what nature and God and the Bible has taught us. So how is it able to hide if it is a dead entity? And do you think there's somewhere within the body anything that is foreign to it can hide? The body has a very sensitive immune system, a very sensitive nervous and endocrine system that maps out the entire body and can easily differentiate between what is self and non-self. And there is no place to hide in the human body. So it is unreasonable to give the virus intelligence it doesn't have. It's a dead entity. So if it's a dead entity and if it's difficult to isolate and it vanishes as it disappears as fast as it appears without leaving any evidence or trace of existence. Now, what is this? Is it there or is it not there? Now, if you go back to the origins where a virus was called poison or snake venom, then we can say that the only thing that is dead, meaning it's not living, but can kill you, is poison. But we know where poison comes from. Poison is limited to certain regions and organisms, and we can avoid those organisms. For example, we have poison in snakes, so we can avoid being bitten by snakes. But we also have people who have survived snake poisons because of a very strong immunity. The other place where poison can come from is from chemicals, drugs, and inoculations. And we can avoid the viruses or the poisons because the word virus and poison means the same thing. So we are going to avoid all places where we can get those viruses or poisons. So we are going to use our intelligence to avoid where we can be injected with poisons. So that is the only way a virus or a poison can kill you, if you allow it to be injected into your body. But for these entities that have said they have evolved, they are not there, sometimes they are there, they are dead entities, and then we are told that they are able to replicate, yet they are dead, then we don't have to fear them, okay? Because they are so weak that they cannot do anything independent of themselves. They have to depend on your cellular machinery. That is, if we have to believe that they are there, because we have read from science itself that they are very delicate, they are not there. So once you take them out of their living environment, they just disappear as fast as they appear. So it's difficult to spread a virus. Why? We have read from mainstream science that once it comes out of the living host, by the time it crosses to another host, it is dead. But how does it become dead if it was already dead? And how is the principle of treating viruses? Why would you give medication to, because the principle of prescribing medications is to kill the pathogen that is causing the disease. But when it comes to viruses, they are already dead. Why do you want to kill something that is dead? And therefore, the principle of treating of viruses defies reason and logic. You are killing something that is already dead. That is interesting. And there's a lot of fun when it comes to accepting what science is saying about viruses, because they are shifting goalposts. It's unreasonable. It takes a lot of faith, and you can only believe in a virus just by faith. But the available evidence is not enough to prove the existence of a virus. And that is the truth. I have read to you information from mainstream science. If you don't believe, you can confirm the same information from your sources that are published in the medical and also in the scientific journals. Now we've come to the end of this presentation of viruses. We will continue to present more studies. Otherwise, for now, continue to like, share, and subscribe to enhance visibility of these subjects. Anytime they are uploaded on this YouTube channel of disease reversal and mitigation. Bye bye. Let's meet some other time.